Welcome to Everything Casual, bringing you original football casual videos from the golden era of the 80s and 90s, right up to current day. Football away day stories and historic clashes between football firms. Subscribe so you don't miss out. We upload videos every week. Today we are looking at the legend that is Baz Patterson, his story and his events with the Birmingham Zulus. This video is made purely out of respect for the late Baz, and not sure if many lads away from Birmingham know, but Baz also dedicated his life to charity, helping homeless people in the streets of Birmingham. I wanted people to know that although he was one of the toughest human beings to walk this earth, he was also one of the most generous, and his charity work is also part of his legacy. The reason I started this channel was I wanted a platform where football lads from the 70s, 80s, 90s, right up to present day, could share memories and stories and remember the good times. I also want to say that sometimes I do read out incidents and stories from actual genuine football lads books because I know they are the most accurate source. If I do use a book that I actually own, I will promote that book and try and introduce it to a new audience, and hopefully generate a bout of income for the author, who is just a normal football lad like you and me. Right, enough of the boring part. Let's jump right into the story of One-Eyed Baz and the Birmingham Zulus. All of the following are Baz's own words. I broke into the Asian shops when I was 8 or 9 years old, stealing anything I could. I broke into warehouses with a couple of mates. Later, when I was about 12 or 13, we used to rob the punters who went to a rundown old pub round our way, where the local prostitutes used to hang around. Whenever you saw the prostitute, you saw her punter, and we used to go and tax that same punter to get easy money. There was an area of Losels where we knew the prostitutes would hang out, and we'd take money off them. Then we started to get friendly with them and said, "Look, we can both make some money if we rob your punter." I remember this brass sent us into a house with a client who was loaded. We already had 2 lads inside when she brought him. We came up behind, this Asian lad bashed him, and we took all his money. I also mugged the prostitutes. I did whatever I could to survive. Despite all this, I remember having good times at Hockley Adventure Playground, where I played happily as a kid. Horsemouth, a black guy, was a friend of mine that I'd been through all the same schools with, so we were pretty tight. But there was this other Asian lad whose parents had a corner shop, so he obviously had a bit of cash on him. Horsemouth and me thought it was a good idea to hold him up. I can't remember who had the knife, but we stopped him and took all his biscuit money. Word got around, the headmaster found out, and we got suspended from school. Our mothers had to come down. Horsemouth's mum started going on about how I was a bad influence upon her son, and I remember her bashing him silly. When I left junior school, I had a good friend named Robert Luca, a white punk rocker. Robert got expelled for smacking a teacher in the face. From that day till this, I have never seen him again. I continued to fight my way through senior school. Some memorable times include sports days and athletics days, when we visited other schools. I would take on the hardest boy I could see and try to make a name for myself. It often turned into a big tear-up with loads of people fighting. Great fun. I was arrested for the first time at 11 years old. There was me and 3 other guys, and we decided to break into this builder's yard just to see what we could get. We climbed through the fence and smashed our way into their office with a brick, starting to fumble through the drawers and throwing things all over the place. All of a sudden, after about 15 minutes, a torch shone through. It was the police, shouting, "Come out! Come out!" I started getting braver and venturing out of Handsworth into the big city of Birmingham with my good pal Thomas Coley. We were part of a gang called the Handsworth Wanderers, who used to go to the Bull Ring in Birmingham and hang around the ramp and fountain, at the entrance to New Street train station, where all travellers into Birmingham had to come. This is where I would base myself in my Zulu days, later in my life. At the Bull Ring, We were fighting, robbing and taxing whoever we could. Our numbers swelled, and there were now over 50 of us. My reputation was growing too. I wasn't aware of it, as I was a follower, not a leader, but people were scared of me and did what I said. I used to have dreadlocks, little picky locks, as was the style if you came from Handsworth. Our gang had some terrifying people. Whether we were Rasta, Asian or white guys, we feared no one. We just loved to fight and make money. We would attack every football fan that came into the centre, no matter where they were from. People used to hate coming into Birmingham because they knew the risk of getting taxed, or of a knife being pulled and them getting slashed by us. But football came to me when I was a rude boy, hanging uptown on a Saturday night during the early 80s. My pal Horsemouth ran with the rude boys. We would wear the two-tone gear and pork pie hats, short trousers and brogues, so we were a kind of mixture of mods and skins, but we didn't really get on with the mods or the skinheads, with their long Parker coats or big Doc Marten boots with coloured braces. We were into ska music, the Coventry band, the Specials, the Selector, and all that. We'd go to gigs in town to see bands like The Beat. We'd steam the clothes shops for our gear and be wearing it the same night. One lad would walk in the shop and steal a rack of clothes. Nobody would chase him because he'd have 5 lads behind him to stop anyone when he walked out. We were the rude boys. We did what we had to do to make a bit of poke for ourselves and to enjoy ourselves. There used to be about 5 of us from Handsworth, and we'd meet up with other lads to go out on the town on a Friday and Saturday night, or fight with the skinheads and mods on a Saturday afternoon. Town was our base, and that was where we used to hang out and earn our money. We were now part of a larger gang with more clout, called the Townies, and we used this as cover for drapesing, taking designer clothes and jewellery off the rich kids. This led to us running the town. It was our manor, and no one could trouble us. We were about 20 to 30 strong, with people like Rupert, a really good friend, who's been like a second brother to me, plus Todd, Rupert's cousin, who lives in Tamworth, Louis, Scan, Sharkey, and Curly. As Birmingham was our domain, we used to rob football supporters, sometimes even the Apex, who were Birmingham City supporters. We had no morals. I used to notice all these skinheads coming into town and wonder where the heck they were all coming from. We soon learned they were Apex, and as rude boys we just said, "Fuck 'em, skinheads are racists." But we'd see this black skinhead with them from time to time and say, "Hey, what's that N-word doing with them skinheads?" We'd chase him as well, and, to be honest, he would get a worse kicking for being black. So after every match on a Saturday when all the skinheads used to come through town, we'd have it off with them, even some of the Apex. We used to have it with their lot all the time. That's how we got into the football. Then we started attacking all the away fans that were coming to town. At that time, we weren't really interested in football. We were townies, and only interested in making some fucking poke and having fun. The Bullring Shopping Centre was the place where we hung out, fought, and earned our money before and during the match, which was why more police were brought into the Bullring, as on most Saturdays while everyone was out shopping, you would have people running and screaming. Another game that sticks with me was when we went to Tranmere, another cup game. I've never been called nigger sunshine in my life, before or since. We had a cup match away at Tranmere, and a firm and a half turned up for it. We travelled up by train and car. I was still living in Handsworth at the time, and some of the guys, including Big Chest Leroy and Rupert, came round to mine. About 5 of us went in my car. We met up with others in town, but everyone shot off at different times. We drove our cars up to a service station outside Liverpool, where we had a laugh and were chatting up the girls, and called taxis to take us into Tranmere. I think we got there around 11 o'clock. People could tell we were from out of town. From inside the car, we'd asked them where the football ground was, but they just didn't want to talk to us. People would walk off and ignore us, 5 black lads in a car wondering, what the effing hell is going on? We drove on and asked a group of lads where the ground was. "There's no effing darkies up here," was their answer. One of the lads tried to jump out of the car, totally furious, But they warned us, no, you can't do that around here. Just walking down the streets, you'd see a bunch of lads, and it was, "Darky, darky, darky, over there." As soon as the police clocked us, they were round us like flies around shit. They locked us in a pub, but some of us managed to get out. I got out before the start of the game, and it was going off all over the place. We sent some guys over to have a row, so that the police went over to them while we were breaking into the fruit machines. In those days, it was expensive to go up there, so you had to make your money back. We took the machines off, bashed them, and raided them. We must have been in there a good hour and a half before the police said we had to start making our way to the ground. We used to go to Wigan for the all-dayer scene, when they used to have the old jazz funk. We knew there were a few black lads there, but when we went to football, I don't think they'd ever seen so many blacks landing in their town centre. There were 40 to 50 of us, and we didn't know what we were coming up against. They knew who we were, but we didn't know who they were. We were walking around the town centre, and we went to a few pubs, but we never got any trouble. We were getting plenty of looks though, as they'd never seen 40 black lads walking through their town centre. Even when we sat down in McDonald's, people were staring at us, though the girls were fine, as to them we were just the fucking lads. About a mile and a half away from the ground, we had it off with Wigan. It was nothing much, but we thought we'd better show our presence. The police were quickly on the scene. They were watching our every move. It was just a quick off bang 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 and see you later. We got in our cars and drove off. In this part of the story, Baz talks about Black Danny, one of the top Villa boys at the time. I have actually made a video all about him, so check that out if you're interested in a story similar to Baz Patterson's. Black Danny, the Villa boy, and the Battle of Rocky Lane. I was brought up with Black Danny. I used to live in Terrace Road, and he lived on Villa Street, just around the corner from me, and we've known each other since we were 6 or 7 years old. Black Danny was friends with a guy called Lloydie, one of Villa's main lads at the time, who is also my cousin. We've always been friends, and, as we're related, we've never clashed. I remember going to a match and seeing Black Danny, though we'd give each other a miss. We've had it off with Villa loads of times, and always had to go looking for them. I remember a firm of us coming out of their ground, walking all the way around, and there were no Villa in sight. We went down there looking for them. They didn't turn up, and they tried to claim a effing victory. Villa were in the old First Division, now the Premiership, and we were always in the lower leagues during the mid-80s, so we hadn't met for a long time. We've had it with West Brom and Wolves, but Villa are the main target. On one occasion that I remember, me, Todd, Rupert, and about 15 of us met up in town and went to a pub in Broad Street. Half of us were in tracksuits. I always like to wear loose clothing so that I can punch, kick and run in them. When we got to the boozer, the doorman said, "Sorry, you can't come in wearing tracksuits." "You effing what?" "You can't come in wearing tracksuits." I pushed him out of the way and we walked into the pub. Afterwards, we all got taxis down to Villa Park, but I missed all the fighting that went on down Rocky Lane. It was all organised, and, as it was going off, people were getting phone calls saying, "Get down here, get down here." Rocky Lane is the street in Aston where everyone arranged to have it off. There's a pub nearby, and when we got there, it was unbelievable. You could hear battle cries, "Zulu! Sea Crew!" Villa had outnumbered the Blues, but we stood there and gave it to them. It was the sort of fight where nobody would run off, just like when we played West Ham. Apparently there were police stood there with their handheld cameras. They had it so easy that day. I wish I'd been there. I'd have been lamping the police with their bloody cameras. When the Blues played Villa at Birmingham one time, we were coming up from one of the boozers in Digbeth, and we got a telephone call saying Villa were coming over the dual carriageway. So we all ran up to the top, where the pub is. There were about 200 lads up by the dual carriageway. Somehow I made my way to the front of the firm. We were walking up and could see quite a few black lads coming down. All we heard was "Sea Crew, Sea Crew." Me, Brains, Rupert and Dougal all stood there. Up ahead, I could see Black Danny, my cousin, and another couple of lads I knew. We were heading away from Birmingham's ground, with Villa coming towards us. Everyone squared up, but then Villa took out baseball bats and knives. We just ran into them, though I bypassed Danny and my cousin. Usually, when I see a tool being drawn, I back off, but I didn't want anyone to see me doing that. Dougal, who's a big fucker like me, was shouting, "Come on, come on." There were now about 30 of us, so we couldn't turn around and run, or we'd be running into ourselves. There were more of us, maybe 2 to 1, but they were tooled up. I don't mind taking a beating off a bat, but I don't want to get effing stabbed. As Lloyd and Danny ran past me, I kicked this geezer. Then I backed off to the side. I did not want to get stabbed. All of a sudden Dougal got clumped and I thought, F this man. 2 minutes later, the police jumped in and it was, thank F for that. When I saw Dougal, he was on the floor completely spark out. That's the point at which some effing guy writes in Villa's book, the so-called famous Zulu cage fighter got knocked out. I said to the guy who wrote it, if you think you floored me, come and have a square go at me then. Black Danny knows it wasn't me who got knocked out. Then the police turned up, so we picked up Dougal and went off to the match. I left the match with about 15 minutes to go, and that's when we saw Villa coming towards us. They were black lads, so we shouted, Zulu. That's our war cry. All you could hear was, Zulu. Then they started shouting, Sea Crew. It was all of the old lads. All you heard around town after that was that we got done. And yeah, we did get done. There's always talk of revenge, but there's bigger fish to fry now. The history is there though. Even if you don't go to a match for 5 years, you still turn out for Villa Blues. Not just for the fighting. You have to be there for the games themselves. The trouble with derby matches is that all the guys come out of the woodwork. Blues don't go to England matches, because they'd end up fighting with their own rival firms. We're not England, we're just Birmingham. We want the glory to ourselves. We don't want to say we joined up with Manchester United or blah blah to beat effing Slovakia or whatever. I remember it was all in the news and the papers for about a week. The Blues came down Rocky Lane, X amount of people were arrested, X amount of police were injured. If I had to rate the top 5 firms, I'd say they were Cardiff, West Ham, Arsenal, Tottenham and Portsmouth. But as far as the top firms we've personally come across, I'd say Villa, Leeds, West Ham and Cardiff. Plus, we've had some unexpected battles with fans in places like Wigan, Tranmere and Stoke. Our group would always contain a mix of races. We had black lads, white lads and Asian lads. We were a pretty multiracial bunch. When people go on about the Zulus being black, that's just something that outsiders instantly think or feel. Even the name Zulus never came about until the year 1982, when we played Man City, and someone in our crowd shouted out, Zulu! The name has stuck with us ever since. With the Blues though, we do have a large black following, and when you go to certain away games, you see the team's fans thinking, look at them. N-words down there, man. They start shitting themselves and you think, F me, we've put the fear of God into them already. It's like when people look at me now. They judge me by appearance. But this can work to my benefit, because when I get into the ring and take my top off, the guy standing across from me thinks, effing hell. It's just a look. One moment when you know you've beaten that guy mentally already, and you only need to go and do the physical stuff. By the time I go out there and raise my hands, he's cowering in the corner. Another time, we met up at New Street Station for an away game at Leeds. About 30 to 40 lads, black, white and a few Asian. Everyone was up for it, buzzing. We thought of getting off at the stop before Leeds and heading that way, but the police were waiting in heavy number, so we stayed on the train. They put us in an escort, and it was the usual verbals. We were calling them scabs and everything. Back then, we still looked upon Leeds as a racist place, even though they had a small black community. The police held us up for half an hour on the platform, searching every one of us thoroughly before putting us on to waiting buses and moving us to a pub. There were the usual attempts to break the escort, but the police weren't having any of it. We knew they would turn up for the Blues, obviously having heard about our reputation. Nothing went on inside the ground. We were kept in for half an hour after the game, and as we came out, all you could hear was Leeds, 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 we are Leeds, and all that kind of shit. We were shouting, scum, scum, as a few bottles came flying over. It didn't faze us. We thrived on the atmosphere of being surrounded by all these racists in yellow and white scarves, hundreds and hundreds of them. We didn't carry colours, we were dressers. As the bricks and bottles were raining down on us, the police didn't do anything. But as soon as we turned to have a go back at them, they took action and waded into us. We were basically caught in their ambush and just had to stay together as a pack. Some of us were breaking away to have a go, but we were getting stranded as too many of our own felt too threatened to back us up. The police eventually got us back on the buses and away. When we got to the train station, we'd had enough, as we felt the police were taking the piss out of us. So we set fire to the bins and used them as a barricade to push forward. This resulted in a full-on scuffle with the police until we got back on the platform and pushed back onto the train. Among ourselves, the usual inquests started. We should have done this, we should have done that. Not for the first time, the call was that we were disorganised as a firm. A good few lads were hurting from the ambush or the lashing from the police. Between certain teams there will always be a history there. No one is going to forget what happened at Leeds, and this was always going to be their revenge for what happened at St Andrews. When their fan died after a wall inside the ground collapsed. I said earlier that it's only right that we talk about Baz Patterson's charity work too, but that is also part of his legacy, and it's a side to him many people may not know, but he absolutely should be known for it. He has actually made a positive impact on so many vulnerable people in crisis and need. Former Blues football hooligan Barrington Patterson has told how he is helping the homeless in Birmingham after giving his own boots to one man. The former kickboxing champion, known as One-Eyed Baz, and wife Tracy have been collecting donations for the needy, including sleeping bags, coats and socks. Reformed Birmingham City hooligan Baz told how he decided to support the community where he grew up after a chance meeting. He said, "One day I got talking to a homeless man. It was freezing cold and raining. I looked down, he had holes in his shoes, so I gave him my winter boots and bought some trainers to get me home." After getting a lot of requests from different charities for help to attend events, I decided that, with help of friends, we could collect clothing to support the homeless. Tracy added, "We are currently collecting sleeping bags, coats and socks ready for the winter for our homeless people in Birmingham. We feel that giving people a helping hand goes a long way. Lots of people are homeless for many reasons: addiction, abuse, debt." I haven't gone into detail about some of the Zulus' biggest clashes in this video, such as battles with Millwall, Leeds and West Ham. That's because this video is all about Baz Patterson's story. I will be making a future video that just focuses on the Zulus and their biggest tear-ups. There is so much more to tell about the life of Baz, all his achievements, his kickboxing career. We have only touched the surface in this video. The guy is an absolute unique legend. Why not buy his book? His full story is all in there. It's an amazing book, by the way. I will leave a link in the description if you do want to buy it. I will also leave a link if you want to buy a book about the Birmingham Zulus. Rest in peace, Barrington Patterson. God bless. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video. If you subscribe, you will be notified when we release a new video. It could be your firm we make a video about next, so don't miss out and hit the subscribe button. You can find me on Facebook or email me if you have a good story to tell. See you next time.